Everybody. This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So, if you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know the politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know, like, it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this is the place where you can ask all of your questions, and there's no judgments, there's no roasting, there's no debates. This is not that show. This is not the show where I yell at people or make fun of them for having different political beliefs than me. This is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions about politics. And, things are very confusing and weird in politics these days, and it can be really difficult to figure out what's accurate information and what is not accurate information. And so that's what we're doing here, everybody. You can ask me anything that you like about politics. What's up, Mia? Good to see you again. And I will do my best to give you, a nice, objective answer that, is free of any, sort of, aggressive bias or whatever. So, yeah. We are just going to answer all of your good faith questions, and there's no fighting, there's no debating, there's no roasting. Partysaurus, good to see you again. Yeah, hit me up with your redistricting question, Partysaurus. Vix Dis says, does Trump secretly have a crush on Biden? Probably not. That seems like a bit of a stretch, Vix Dis. So yeah, thank you for the questions already, everybody. We are off to a raucous start. I thought the Dems were in Chicago. Did I miss something that they were able to vote for it? So yes. So the reason why the Democrats left Chicago is because Gavin Newsom was able to set up a gerrymander in California to counter the Republican gerrymander in Texas. The California Democratic gerrymander still needs to get voted on in November, but it's looking good. And lastly, I would say that, it was really difficult for them to stay in Chicago. And while they potentially could have stayed until, I think, December, at which point it would have been impossible for Texas to do their, unethical, immoral, cheating gerrymander. It's really difficult for, politicians who do politics as their second job, whose families are in Texas and who are being charged $500 a day to just continue staying in Chicago, Party source says they were getting ready to roll the FBI up there to nab them, right? That's what they were threatening to do. I don't know if they would, I don't put anything past the Trump administration. What's up, John Tron? Please don't eat my eyeballs. I appreciate you being here, though. Let's see here. Oh no, looks like there's an active shooter somewhere. That is very upsetting, but also, this is America. Don't catch you slipping up, Right. Lever 2K, good to see you again. Thoughts on ships and Marines being sent to the coast of Venezuela? I haven't heard anything about that, Lever 2K, but it is, concerning, I would say. Yeah. Fog War Productions, dude, where have you been? I've been traveling. Fog War Productions. Also, I was kicked off of doing lives for a week because I said some things that the TikTok gods did not care for. I suspect it had to do with talking about the fellow with the island, if you know what I mean. And so, as much as I would love to continue, blowing the horn about that particular issue, I believe that if I'm going to continue to do the work of informing people about politics here on TikTok, I might have to be a little bit more tight-lipped about that particular fellow with the island. But I'm glad you're back, Fog War Productions. Thank you for being here. DGG says, you've been silenced? I was silenced. Christian Voluntaris says, what do you think about anarchy? I'm not for anarchy. I think that when anarchy happens, marginalized communities get hurt. All right, excellent questions so far, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. My name is Jared. I'm here to answer all your questions about politics. No judgments, no roasting, no debating. I don't get into yelling and screaming fights here. I don't call people stupid. Mia's LV Adventure says, what is Marxism? That's an excellent question, Mia. And it's a very frustrating answer, which is it depends on who you ask. There are people that study Marx, professionally. They teach college courses on it, and they have a different definition than, for example, the people on Fox News. But it could loosely be described as, a foundational sort of communism where workers who are doing 90% of the labor to create value are the ones that should get 90% of the economic benefits from that value. That's, what do you call it? That is, a very, very broad definition. Dunk, it does not seem like you are here in good faith. It seems like you have an agenda. If you want to ask questions in good faith, I will engage with you. But if not, I do not care for people just spreading propaganda and misinformation on my channel. So I would say if you want to know why has crime in DC plummeted, it literally hasn't. So I don't know what you're talking about. ACE says the reason Abrigo Garcia is getting deported again is because if they stop, they admit they were wrong. I mean, yeah, they were wrong. They're just going to continue to, torture this poor fucking dude for no fucking reason other than they don't want to be wrong about shit, and that is it's a fucking nightmare, and we should all be really fucking pissed off and embarrassed that this is what our country is doing. Matthew Pole 69 says, hey, are you going to stare all day or are you going to buy something? That's not a question about politics, Matthew. Dunk says, LOL, what I thought. That's not a question, Dunk. Congratulations, you're out of here. Scrolling down to the bottom. All right, welcome everybody to the live stream. I'm here to answer all your questions about politics. There's no fighting, there's no roasting, there's no debating. It is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. ACE says, I live next to DC and the crime was down before this, but the reason they can say it's down because people. I think I know what you're saying there, Ace, and that it is true that the Trump administration is cooking the books. Like they're going to make it seem like crime was big beforehand and is less now. And the Justice Department has exactly zero credibility right now. Pretty much every branch of government has zero credibility because the Trump administration has been firing all of the career people that work there and just replacing them with Trump sycophants who will say and do whatever Trump tells them to do, regardless of what their actual fucking job is. You know what I mean? Ace says, are scared to leave their house. Yeah, the people they don't want to get fucking shot by a bunch of, National Guards people with their fucking weapons, even though they didn't fucking have them in Kuwait and shit like that, Flag War Production says, what do we think about the whole Newsom glazing ongoing right now? So I'm not for any lionizing of any politicians. Like we can call them out when they do things that are good. We can call them out when they do things that are bad. I don't think that anybody who is saying Gavin Newsom is perfect and amazing and is going to deliver us all from evil are, doing the good work. The same way that I don't think that people who are saying Gavin Newsom is the devil, and if we nominate him, Democrats will lose the election, or we will be stuck in a centrist, corporate Democrat hellscape where homeless people get put in a wood chipper and shit like that. So I think both sides of the dialogue are incorrect in the Newsom glazing. I think this is the only correct take about Gavin Newsom. Are you guys ready? Make sure you hit record because this is historical. You're getting literally the only good take about Gavin Newsom. You ready? Here we go. Gavin Newsom is good on some things and bad on other things. He's extremely handsome and tall and white. And so a lot of people are going to believe that that is what Democrats need to win elections. And people are going to vote for him in the primary if they like him, but also if they think that voting for him is strategic. And other people are going to say that they don't like Gavin Newsom, and so they're going to vote for somebody else. And they're going to encourage people to vote for other people, even if those people are also agree with them that Gavin Newsom isn't great and that they're just voting for him because they're trying to make a strategic choice to win the election. And I don't think either of those perspectives is necessarily wrong or right. I will be voting for the person that I like the best in the primary, and that may or may not be Gavin Newsom. And regardless, it is important that we maintain the goal of unelecting every Republican because they are the ones that are letting this shit happen right now. And we need to do things to restore a balance to our government, to restore checks and balances and, division of labor and shit like that. Alrighty, scrolling on the bottom, unknown says, let's not forget what they say behind closed doors that we don't know. So all politicians are scumbags. Not all politicians are scumbags, unknown. And when you say shit like that, you're giving cover for the worst ones. Riddick says the amount of National Guard being spread through 19 states is too few to be concerned about. No, it is 100% something that we should be concerned about because it's completely unnecessary. It is step It is one of the necessary steps of authoritarianism to take control of the military and then deploy the military to, the cities that you believe are your enemies. It is draining resources. We are wasting fucking shit tons of money. It is dangerous, to have American military with active fucking weapons out on American streets. It is 100% something that we should be concerned about. Christian says, would you consider yourself left wing or right wing? I consider myself left wing. Geronimo24 says, femboy. That's not what your mom called me last night. Lauren, great to see you again. Angry Long Island Vets. 2020 to 2024, Democrats lost 2.4 million from the party. Republicans gained 2.1. I do not know what point you are trying to make here, Angry Long Island Vet, but propaganda misinformation is a hell of a drug. All right. Shrug emoji says he's not seeing it. I'm going to keep saying it. I don't know. I didn't see what you said. Maybe instead of commenting about how I'm not seeing your comments, maybe you could just put a comment. Emily says, what do you think about the troops being sent to Chicago and New York City? I don't know if they've officially been deployed yet, but any time that the Trump administration sends American military to American cities, while there is no sort of active emergency happening, just because he wants to exert power and be more of a fucking dictator, it's all bad. It is all bad. Scott Clower, good to see you again. Mustache Man did the same thing. Federalized police departments. Charlie says, do you agree with Texas redrawing districts? No, I do not. Shrug emoji says, what is JD Vance's favorite color? Teal. Oh, that's funny. I get that. Let's see here. Guppy Wompy says, not talking about Jaws. You're not talking about the problem. Don't really understand what Jaws has to do with anything. Angry Long Island Vet says, do you think Democrats need to change their strategy? I don't really care what the Democratic strategy is. I am a progressive, and so I agree that we should be replacing the old guard with younger, more progressive candidates. But if they don't do that, it is still better to elect Democrats than Republicans. So, my goal, my crusade is clear. It is unelecting every Republican. Republicans need to start feeling electoral consequences for ruining everything and hurting people and letting people die. Let's see here. Charlie says, do you agree with California redrawing districts? California is doing retaliatory redrawing their districts. So, and they have provisions in their redraw mandate that says that it is only going to happen if Texas does it, and it will undo if Texas undoes theirs. Angry Long Island Vet says, do you think tariffs saves lives? No, I do not. But I do believe that the increased costs that the tariffs are causing are causing people to not be able to pay rent or medical costs or buy food and shit like that. And so that's actually going to harm and or kill people. Ace says, I think part of why we are here is because not enough people spent time with other races and playing down history. Maybe, I don't know. Jorge Costava says, do you think flag burners have too much freedom? There's a lot of flag burners with way too much freedom. I want to make it legal for the police to beat them because it's limits to our liberty. At least I hope and pray that there are, because these liberal freaks go too far. Simpsons, anybody? Are we done with my Simpsons references? Chris Contardo says, bro, you sound brainwashed. That's not what your mom said last night. John Bradley says, how about the executive order to end cashless bail? How far before they rein him in? I actually don't know anything about that executive order, John Bradley. I got to do a little Google on that. MYK says, do you think America should exist? Sure. Broad says, Democrats need to start giving Republicans nickname like Vacation Vance. It sticks to people's noodles. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, potentially, a lot of them are lame. A lot of the nicknames are lame. Cancun Cruz, and he still won his reelection. So, all right. Flamingo Mo says, I never tire of Simpsons references. Well, you're welcome. I would say thank you to Jorge for spawning that one. I think Jorge knew exactly what he was doing. Charlie says, so if the first state to gerrymander was a blue state, is Texas redrawing retaliatory? Yeah, Charlie, 100%. But that's literally not what happened, Redistricting usually happens on the decades, so 2000, 2010, 2020, 2030, etc. The Texas Republicans are doing this in order to try to steal the midterms in 2026. So yeah, your hypothetical is accurate, but it's just not what happened here. Honestly, it seems like you're just trying to confuse the issue. Cameron Hodge says, do you believe GOP will go back more center after Trump is gone and stand up to one another? I don't think so. I think they're just going to try to keep on playing the Trump playbook and try to, inherit his fan base, Angry Long Island Vet says, can you name something positive Trump has done, or is it just Orange Man bad? Angry Long Island Vet, my criticism of Donald Trump is not Orange Man bad. It is a litany. It is a massive list of unconscionable, barbaric shit that Donald Trump and the Republican Party have happened. And the fact that you would love to do nothing but water it down to just Orange Man bad, as though there's no substantive criticisms to be having of Republicans or Donald Trump, it shows your bias here, Angry Long Island Vets. And I gotta be honest, my patience with you is running real fucking thin. Like, let's engage on something actually substantive instead of just fighting along these stupid ass party lines, All right, Angry Long Island Vet, congratulations, you're fucking out of here, All right, Huge Oregon says Texas Republicans are doing what Democrats in blue states have done for decades. Now you cry foul. That is historically inaccurate, Huge Oregon. So there has always been gerrymandering in politics, but it skyrocketed in 2010 when the Republican Party swept the midterms and they started doing these massive gerrymanders that were completely unprecedented. Some blue states have responded by doing their own gerrymanders. Other blue states like California have passed laws that say that redistricting can only happen via independent commissions. But I think the most important point is that Democrats tried to make partisan gerrymandering illegal and Republicans filibustered it. So if you want to come at me with that both sides bullshit, you got to bring receipts, man, because it is literally just all day, every day. Republicans are worse on this issue. Democrats are better. Ali Bay says more red states have worse gerrymandering than blue states. That is accurate. Cameron Hodge says, do you believe Democrats are tough enough on crime and border? Any criticism? Yeah, so Cameron Hodge, the Democratic Party is the only party that is actually trying to solve issues with border and immigration and crime. The Republican Party wants to keep those as issues so that they continue to run on them in elections. They are not doing anything substantive to try to solve the problems. They are just all punitive all the time, which is really just, authoritarianism, otherizing, it's fucking schnauzy shit. You know what I mean? So yeah, there are mistakes that the Democratic Party has made. There are mistakes that the Democratic Party has made that some of them are good faith, some of them were forced errors by bad faith billionaire shitheads. But I still trust them more on both of those issues rather than the Republican Party, which is like fucking doing medieval shit instead, where they're like, oh, why don't we just fucking chop all their fucking heads off? That would solve the problem, don't you think? Ali May says a big problem with immigration is that the process is broken and takes too much time and money. That is accurate. David says Republicans are cashing out with everything they do. That is also accurate. Mia's LV Adventure says, I am progressive, and when I get into a live, I've been told that we are the reason why we lost in 2024. Mia, the people that tell you that are completely fucking full of shit. There are exactly as many people who believe that Democrats lost because they were too progressive as people that believe that they lost because they were too centrist. And the fact of the matter is, nobody knows the answer to that question, mostly because America is a wildly diverse place with wildly eclectic, different political opinions. And so where one person didn't want to vote for Democrats because they viewed them as too progressive, another person didn't want to vote for Democrats because they viewed them as too centrist. So yeah, that whole fucking dialogue, that whole fucking, conversation is bullshit. And so yeah, Mia, I don't buy that shit one tick. Talat Burke over on YouTube says they want 4 for UFO file release, then they want 10, then they want edits. I don't know what that is, Talat. Sorry, I'm not up on the UAP, up on the most recent information about UAPs. Cameron Hodge says, how would you rank Biden presidency in modern times, top or bottom of the list? I think that Biden and Obama were very good presidents who made a lot of mistakes, but did a lot of really good things for the American people. I would put them up against any Republican president in the last 50 years. Alrighty, Charlie says, sounds like your political approach is similar to Benjamin Netanyahu. Hate and eliminate rivals. No, that is not my thing at all, Charlie. What a weird thing to say. Ace says, how would you fix the map stuff so no one can gerrymander? We could have passed the For the People Act when Biden was in control of Congress, but, Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin decided that they wanted to keep the filibuster, and so we weren't allowed to do that. And I told everybody, hey, if you vote for more Democratic senators, then we can get rid of gerrymandering. But nobody fucking listened to me. So, yeah. What we can do is pass a law to make partisan gerrymandering illegal, make it so that every state can only redistrict using independent commissions that do not try to pick voters for politicians. Fog War Productions says, I was going to say I have different politics than Jarrett, and he's never sent a hitman after me yet. I just haven't figured out where you live yet, Fog War Productions. Cameron Hodge says, do you believe Obama had any foul play in the Russia 2016 allegations? Cameron Hodge, this issue has been settled. There was absolutely zero foul play by Obama in the Russia 2016 allegations. It is completely made up bullshit by the Trump administration, trying to punish his political enemies. It is nonsense. There's more nothing there than a nothing burger. Alrighty. Huge Oregon says Obama was and is a treasonous piece of shit. That is not accurate, Huge Oregon. I don't know what you're talking about. OEKCIR says next president, I don't know, but maybe we should try focusing on the midterm elections in 2026. Transient Traffic Jam says, oh boy, looks like another one. Another extremely handsome man that had sex with your mom last night. Video Cloud says, why should we support Israel? I don't think that we should. I think that they have been found guilty of war crimes. A number of different independent agencies have said that what they are doing is a genocide. And so 100%, we need to stop sending them money and weapons. Well, full stop. Scott Clara says, all U.S. security agencies agreed that Russia cheated for Trump in 2016. That is accurate. And in fact, one of those security agencies was led by Marco Rubio when they came to that conclusion. There you go. SRT Tom says, no wonder my mom got me ice cream this morning. Rubio says, are you Republican? No, I am not. Cameron Hodge says, considering the presidential immunity, does Trump have the right to almost anything? Yes, sort of, Cameron Hodge. With everything that goes on in the Trump administration right now, there are very few levers of power to stop him. The presidential immunity ruling means that he cannot be held legally accountable for things that he does in office right now when he leaves office. The judiciary memo that says that sitting presidents can't be indicted protects him right now from anything illegal that's going on. Right now, the only power that can stand up to Trump is Congress or the Supreme Court. And they are both on board with what Trump is doing, with all of the illegal shit that Trump is doing, with all of the fascist dictator shit, with all the fuck the poor, give more money to the rich shit, cut government services so that billionaires can have more fucking giant yachts and fucking do coke and lobster 24/7. So yeah, we're kind of fucked there, where the only lever of power that we the people still have for watching our backs is us. And so, he does have the quote unquote right to do almost anything, but we can make it so that he doesn't get away with it. All right. Cameron Hodge says, does presidential immunity warrant against immunity? I don't know what that means, actually. Let's see here. SRT Tom. Jose Martinez says, are femboys okay to procreate with? I mean, I believe that they still have male organs, so I think that you would need a woman to procreate with a femboy. Rubio 729 says, are you a Democrat? Yes, I am. Hugh Jorgen says 0 if you omit the equation of Obama demanding manufactured intelligence. All right. Congratulations, Hugh Jorgen. You're full of shit, so you are out of here. For everybody watching, I don't care if you have different political opinions than me, but actually ask a question, be part of the conversation, and you can stay. Does presidential immunity warrant against impeachment? No, it does not, Cameron Hodge. In fact, I believe that was part of the Supreme Court rationale, was that the mechanisms by which we punish a president is impeachment, which I mean, I could be wrong about that. It's been a long time since I dug into that opinion. DCB Link says, do you think the Democratic Party is in a death spiral? No, I do not. In fact, there's a lot of great work coming out of the Democratic Party, and there has been for a long time. David says, we need a multi-million-dollar class action suit against Trump. That sounds good to me. KP the Great says, imagine caring about who someone voted for, LOL. I don't care about who someone voted for, KP the Great. I care about who you're going to vote for in the next election. SRT Tom says, how do you feel about Trump's misdemeanor being upgraded to a felony? Are you talking about the Stormy Daniels case in New York, SRT Tom, because I'm not really sure what you are referring to. Wally's Vegetables says, if Dems get the numbers in Congress after midterms, will there be a legitimate attempt to remove Donald Trump? So yes, there will be impeachment hearings if Democrats take the House. If Democrats do not get 67 seats in the Senate, then it will be very unlikely that the Senate will vote to remove Donald Trump from office. But he could be impeached a third time, which would be, what do you call it? I guess a good thing for the history books, I guess, But more than that, the Democratic House would be able to stop a lot of the damage the Trump administration is currently doing. MCGA says Trump signed an executive order just now criminalizing flag burning. Thoughts? It's dumb. It's stupid. I don't really care if you want to burn a flag or if you don't want to burn a flag. I just think it's stupid to care. I think it's stupid that the president is spending his time doing that as opposed to ending wars or bringing down prices or, actually doing anything to reduce crime. And he's building fucking concentration camps and shit like that and taking away people's rights and ignoring due process and stuff like that. But yeah, let's do more of this fucking culture war shit about how you're the real Americans because you don't believe in burning flags. It's just so fucking dumb. And, I think it is evidence of how little the Republican Party gives a shit about you and me. They don't give a shit about whether or not we live or die, if we are sick or if we are healthy, if we have money to pay for food and medicine, or if we are just dying on the fucking streets. The only thing they care about is money and power and getting elected and helping their billionaire fucking buddies. It's just so fucking stupid. SRT Tom says, isn't burning the flag protected by the First Amendment? I'm pretty sure it is. Gingy says, what do you know about Rockbridge? Is this something we should be really worried about? So it is something you should be worried about. Wait, are you talking about Rockland or Rockbridge, Gingy? I thought you were talking about Rockland, like the voting case in upstate New York. But if you're not talking about Rockland, then I'm not 100% sure what that means. Spook says fear-mongering. What are you talking about, fear-mongering? Gen X66 says, if impeachment, what about removal? They would need 2/3 of the Senate to vote for removal. And the Republican Party has shown that they do not care what Trump does. They will never impeach him from office. He could literally kill their families and they would still not vote to remove him from office. So the only way that Congress can remove Trump from office is if Democrats take back the House and win 67 seats in the Senate. Now, it is very statistically unlikely that that will happen, but it is possible. Like, weird shit happens in politics all the time. So if we are able to do the fucking work of electing Democrats up and down the ballots, of unelecting every Republican in 2026, it is 100% possible to do it. It's just very unlikely that people will do that amount of work. All right. US941 says, what happened to you? I don't know what you're asking about. SRT Tom says, got a gerrymander to get all those seats. I'm not really sure. I think if we could ungerrymander what the Republicans have done, but I don't know if we need to gerrymander unless it's like retaliatory, Alrighty. Spook says that can happen when their approval rating is less than 15%. That's not a question, Spook. And again, if you do not ask a question, I'm going to boot you. I know exactly what you're doing here. I know that you are not here to engage in good faith. I know that you are here to spread propaganda and misinformation and cynicism. So, Spook says, is Trump a dictator? He is trying to be. Whether or not he is completely up to us. There are still things that he is too squeamish to try to do, Spook. But if he begins to, I don't know, do X, Y, or Z more, there are people who would argue that he is already acting like a dictator right now. But the things that he's trying to do, like consolidate power and take over every branch of government, is dictatorship. Spook says, then how are you able to talk right now without getting put in jail? That's you, Spook. So, yeah, there is a principle by which there are so many targets for ICE that they haven't gotten to me, people like me, yet. It's that old poem that I'm sure you've never even fucking heard of. First they came for the communists, and I was not a communist, so I said nothing. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I wasn't a trade unionist, so I said nothing. Then they came for the Jews, and there was no one to stand up for me because everybody was gone already. All right. Congratulations, Spook. You're out of here. Ask one question and then act like a dick? No, thank you. SRT Tom says, how do you feel about the current trade war? It is increasing the cost of living for everybody, and we're already suffering in a cost of living crisis, so it's just making everything worse. All right, Tucker Johnson says, thoughts on Polk? I have zero opinions on Polk. Alrighty, Shork says, what do you think about the government directly owning a stake in companies like Intel? It's fucking socialism. You know, it is the government deciding which companies get to be profitable. It is the government having a stake in certain companies being profitable as opposed to other companies being profitable. It is not free market capitalism. It is, you know, it's fucking crony capitalism at its fucking worst, you know? And, you know, what I think that it is going to potentially have some issues where, let's say that you want to start, you know, a different version of Intel. Like now you do not have the backing of the American government to support you the way that Intel does. So now you're at a fucking massive disadvantage. There's a free market for you. And also, you know, it is facilitating adversarial nations getting technology that they will use to bury us. So it is just further fucking everybody for no fucking good, you know? Right. Moondog says he's the man, best president since Reagan. That is not a question, Moondog. Ask a question or you're going to get booted. All right. Non-consensual learning says, who is the most corrupted politician? Oh, my God. It's Donald Trump by a fucking mile. But, yeah, the Republican Party is fucking sick with corrupt politicians, you know? How can we know that they're not corrupt? That's a really good question, non-consensual learning. I guess you need to look at the policies that they're advocating for and see if they directly coincide with that person's financial or political benefits. You know, like there is no reason why the president should have a crypto coin. There's no fucking reason for that. It doesn't help America. It doesn't help citizens. It only helps him. There's just fucking corruption, plain and simple, you know? Ted Cruz was advocating for weakening the Federal Election Commission so that he could get more bribes from donors. You know, that's just fucking corrupt shit there. So if you see a politician who is advocating for, you know, making partisan gerrymandering illegal or getting money out of politics or shit like that person is probably not corrupt or less corrupt, you know? Gabe 6 says thoughts on the Texas gerrymandering. It's unethical. It's cheating. It is typical Republican bullshit of trying to cheat to win elections. Sweet Rob says, can the people sue Trump and Congress? That's a really excellent question, Sweet Rob, and I honestly don't know the answer to that question. Yeah, maybe I'm gonna give that a Google, Sweet Rob. Come back tomorrow and we'll see if I can get you an answer on that. Phoenix Tacoma says, why can Texas gerrymander but California cannot? Any state can gerrymander so long as it is allowed by their bylaws. You know, there are certain states that have it in their charters that they're not allowed to redistrict unless it is a decade, and that when the redistricting happens, it has to be, you know, a independent commission that does it. All right, sociology doctor says, no way Cruz was the victor. Manipulated tabulators hurt Colin Allred. You know, I haven't heard that theory, sociology doctor, but I'm open to it. Like, Ted Cruz is one of the most unliked human beings on planet Earth, so it is unlikely that he is just fucking winning elections and no funny business. Zonia, good to see you again, says they did it back in 2003. Texas, they are always changing the line so that the House always wins. That is excellent. That is accurate, Zonia. Catastrophic Blues 113 says, so 2 months ago, DC was safe enough for his birthday parade, but now it's so and stuff they need the National Guard. Catastrophic Blues, we are in full agreement. It is bullshit what the Trump administration is doing. Non-consensual learning says, would you consider Pelosi stock trading corruption? I would, but I think it is important, non-consensual learning, that we recognize that the Democratic Party is trying to make it so that people in office cannot trade stocks. The Republican Party is fighting that, and every Republican is doing that also, but for some reason Nancy Pelosi is the face of insider trading in Congress. So I believe that we need to fight that narrative that Nancy Pelosi is fucking, for some reason, the only person in government that is doing insider trading when it's literally every Republican, you know? Alrighty. Isn't redistricting supposed to coincide with a national census? It is, Phoenix Tacoma. It 100% is. Michael Merhar says, what about Josh Hawley? So Josh Hawley is one of the co-signers on the bill to stop people in government from trading stocks. But I think what's important to recognize about Josh Hawley is he is completely fucking full of shit. He talks a good game about being an economic populist and standing up for the little guy, but then he votes with the Republicans to increase cost of living on the 99% and decrease taxes for the rich billionaires that he supposedly has a fucking problem with. He's a fake populist, he's a liar, he's an opportunist, he's trying to be the new economic populist Donald Trump. As soon as Donald Trump is gone, then he will be able to zip right in there and say, I'm one of the good Republicans, guys. I promise. I swear, guys. So, all right. Phoenix says, why is gerrymandering even allowed? Why aren't they just sticking with county lines? Phoenix, it's not illegal. And Democrats tried to make it illegal during the Biden administration, but Republicans filibustered it. So if you don't like it, then maybe we should all work together to try to unelect every Republican that is letting this happen. And maybe we can elect Democrats instead who will pass a law to make partisan gerrymandering illegal. That sounds like a pretty good move to me. That seems pretty cool, Alrighty, Gabe the Sixth says, should there be an age limit for any offices? I am down with having an age limit for political office. I don't know what that age limit should be, but I do think that it is not good for our democracy that we're being run by a fucking gerontocracy, Heat Storage says, I will never vote for liberal. I don't understand why you wouldn't, Heat Storage, because Democrats have better policies and they have better outcomes. So why would you not? Let's see here. Heat Storage says, tell me 3 good things about America. All right. Women have the right to vote. We ended slavery. And the Environmental Protection Agency. There you go, buddy. Keith Schultz says, Dems lost. User a bunch of numbers. Says, Democrats are the professionals at gerrymandering. That is inaccurate. Democrats tried to stop gerrymandering and Republicans filibustered their attempt. All right. Heat Storage says, so nothing unique about America. I'm not... Ask a question, Heat Storage, or I'm going to boot you. I know what you're doing here, and I don't have any patience for it today. Keith Schultz says, will descendants of slaves pay reparations to 350K dead Union soldiers? I have no idea what you're talking about. Fog of War Productions says, voting Democrat as a conservative gives you insane bargaining power. I think it's a very interesting statement to make, Fog of War Productions. And so I'm not going to come down on either side, but I do think it's interesting. Amir says, why is he ignoring me? I'm not. I just didn't see your comments. Michael LV says, you say we ended slavery as though it was ended here first. Nope, never made that claim. Somebody just asked me to name good things about America, and I said ending slavery. Glenn Sharp says, who's running in 2028, genius? I don't know. Daniel D says, let's not talk about politics anymore. Let's talk about geography. No. Phoenix Tacoma says, when is the supposed SAFE bill repealing the 19th Amendment hitting the U.S. Senate? That is an excellent question. I do not believe that it is going to pass the SAFE bill. But they would need 60 votes. They don't have 60 votes. So, yeah, I'm not too concerned about that. I'm more worried about, militarization and cheating by the Republican Party. Amir says, what should be the Democratic Party line on Gaza into the next election? I think that we need to be supporting statehood for Palestine. I think we should stop sending money and weapons to Israel because they have been found guilty of war crimes. Until they do more to address the humanitarian crisis that they have caused in Palestine, then we should not be assisting them in any way. That should be the Democratic Party line. Matthew Jones says, all politicians are corrupted. That is inaccurate. Some are corrupt and some are not corrupt. And when you say shit like that, you're giving cover for the worst ones. Matthew Jones. Fog War Production says, I would argue that geography is one of the most important factors in politics. Yeah, potentially. Let's see here. Michael LV says, that's intentionally obtuse. It's harder to name a place that has legal slavery, and we are one. I mean, I agree with you, Michael LV, that our prison industrial complex is basically legalized slavery. But you are arguing against a straw man. You are arguing against things that I did not say. Shork says, if Democrats win enough seats in the midterms, what does it mean for the Trump administration? If they take back the House, Trump will get impeached, and also he will not be able to pass any more laws. They will have much more control over any spending bill that comes up, which will be really good for, stopping things like the wildly inflated budgets of ICE and defunding organizations like, the Consumer Financial Protection Board and shit like that. If they get 67 seats in the Senate, then they can remove him from office. Zonia says, do you think Matt Stone and Trey Parker can trigger Trump cults to rage spirals into their own demise? I love what South Park is doing. It is just one piece of the puzzle. It's just one slice of the pie. It is not going to solve all of our problems for us. It is just one thing. It is just one ingredient, and we still have to do all the rest of the work. Non-consensual learning says, do you believe in Trump derangement syndrome? I believe that it is a term that Republicans created to make any criticism of Donald Trump and Republicans seem illegitimate. And so, no, I do not believe in it. Shork says, is it possible to undo the BBB off of midterm outcomes? Yes, but Democrats would need to win every single seat that is up for re-election. So it's unlikely, but it is possible. Joseph the Professor says, so you decided to ignore me. Oh, I didn't see your question. Scott Clyra says, private prisons have close ties to the Republican Party. 4% of the world population, 25% of its prisoners. That is all accurate. Sean Stumble says, thoughts on James Tallarico, 2028. I don't know too much about him. I think he's fine. He seems kind of corny to me, but, a lot of politicians are corny. So I don't really judge politicians too harsh on being corny. Cozyism says, about to join student government senate in my school and model UN and other political clubs. Any tips? I think that's great. Cozyism. I would just say, try to be a good, try to do good coalition work with people that disagree with you. Try to do good things for the students. Let's see here. Average Joe PG, great to see you again. Last election, we saw more disparity than usual between polling numbers and election numbers. I have a theory that the reason is for this is largely due to unconscious or covert racism. They just vibed with Trump's rhetoric. Do you feel the discrepancy is mostly from polling methods or just being too ashamed to admit that they like Trump? I do have some thoughts on that, Average Joe PG. Let me get back to that. It's the Rocketeer. I think it's funny they're saying Trump's hand is bruised because he shakes too many hands. Is he weak? I mean, he's old, I don't know if he's going to keel over anytime soon, but he's definitely old. Alrighty, let's see here. Tweedledum says, did liberals go too far left to lose the popular vote last year? No, that is not why Democrats lost. It is not because they went too far left. It is not because they were too centrist. Not consensual alerting says, do you think it's okay for people to treat others rude based on them being Trump supporters? No, I do not. Not consensual learning. I believe that we need to practice radical empathy to every single voter, but that we need to do everything that we can to unelect every single Republican politician, and that we need to call out right-wing bullshit talking heads like Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk for being fucking liars, for being fucking paid propagandists who are spreading bullshit and hurting people just so that they can have a fucking platform and attention and millions of dollars. Right, Tweedledum says, can you explain your theory on why they lost? Yes, I can, but give me a hot second. I want to get to Average Joe's question here. So the polling industry it's more of an art than a science. And really the only poll that was like really wildly off was the Iowa poll with Des Moines Register. What was it? It's the one lady who said that Democrats, Kamala Harris is going to win, and then Trump actually won that state. Almost every other pollster was playing it extremely safe and saying that the race is neck and neck, and then the race actually did end up falling within the margin of error of every pollster. Now, I do think that there are people that voted because of unconscious racism. I do think there are people who are too ashamed to admit in public that they like Trump. But yeah, I'm not sure if that is necessarily part of my grand unified theory of that election. But I do think it's interesting, and there are definitely people that fall into those categories. But yeah, polling is difficult. It is unreliable. It is just a snapshot, and only a snapshot of certain demographics who answer their phone or click on links from strange numbers and shit like that. So yeah, it is. It's very difficult to get an accurate read on on the population and their beliefs and shit like that. Even elections are not representative. Only 23% of America voted for Republican politicians, and now they are completely in power. You know what I mean? Amuriu says, can I ask you random stuff also? You can, I might not answer it. Zonia says, do you think if Gaddafi waited for BRICS to pull away per se that he'd still be alive today? Ooh, that is an excellent question, Zonia. I do not have a good answer for you on that. Mac, you're out of here. Also, he's not going to live that long. Alrighty, scrolling down to the bottom. Mustang says, why are Democrats so delusional? They're not. And I don't have any patience for people like you, so you're out of here. On down to the bottom. And Hassan says, what do you think about redistricting? I think it should happen every 10 years, and it should be done by independent commissions. That would have been the law of the land if people voted for Democrats in larger numbers, but because they didn't, Republicans were able to filibuster the Democrats trying to make partisan gerrymandering illegal, and so now it is happening in the middle of the decade. You know, it is just Republicans trying to cheat to win elections. Lindsay, yes, I am. I was traveling and now I'm back. Amu Niru says, now hear me out. Why don't world leaders just one-on-one instead of making us fight wars? Somebody asked me for my theory about why Democrats lost 2024. Are you still here? Because I don't want to do that speech if you're not still here. Alrighty. Shork says, what made MAGA so effective? Because there's no way Trump had the foresight for it. Shork, there are a lot of structural advantages that right-wing politicians have in winning elections in America. Gerrymandering, the Senate map, the Electoral College, the media environment pushes narratives that help elect Republicans and hurt Democrats. We judge the Democratic Party by much harsher standards than we do the Republican Party. Republicans never get any blame for the negative things they do. Democrats never get any credit for the good things that they do. But in addition to all of that, there is also the influence of billionaire dollars on elections, and the billionaires are firmly in the pocket of the Republican Party because the Republicans' platform is pro giving billionaires more money and fucking over everybody else and hurting unions and shit like that. So yeah, the influence of billionaire dollars on elections, the electoral advantages that Republicans have, the information environment. There are a lot of ways that make it easy for Republicans to do what Republicans are currently doing, and it is the reason why being activated and engaged in politics and working towards unelecting Republicans is, essential work, because we don't have, all of the world's richest pieces of shit paying money to do this work for us. Like, we have to do the work, Alrighty. Christopher says the Republicans started the redrawing process at normal time. You're spreading lies. That is completely inaccurate, Christopher. I don't know why you're spreading lies on my live. Ask a question or I will boot you. Shawnee Flytrap, good to see you again. What did you discover this morning? Shork says, I just think it's strange how it feels like MAGA hijacked even the Republican Party. Yeah, propaganda, misinformation, billionaire dollars, Shork. It is not a coincidence. Non-consensual learning says, Newsom has been fighting homelessness for 20 years in California. Is he truly competent or corrupt? I believe that homelessness being an issue in California is a problem that Newsom is not responsible for. He did pass a lot of laws to try to solve Californians living in poverty. But the fact of the matter is that for decades, when Newsom wasn't even in politics, we have had declining building of necessary housing in states like California. And some of that is for good reasons, like making sure that we do environmental safety checks. And some of it is for bad reasons, like the NIMBY movement, the Not in My Backyard movement, or billionaire housing developers who want to artificially increase housing costs by, decreasing supply. But yeah, just because he didn't solve a problem that has been, decades in the making and is massive and is partially due to a cost of living crisis that was not the fault of Democrats or Gavin Newsom or California or anything, I do not believe that is an accurate read on Gavin Newsom. All right, it's the Rocketeer says, did we talk about the executive order that got signed this morning penalizing flag burning with a year in jail? We did. It's the Rocketeer. Short version, it's dumb. It's stupid culture war shit. It is just Donald Trump doing more stuff that doesn't help Americans while the billionaire class just fucking steals all of their money and poisons us with the chemical runoff from their factories. And Hassan says, do you think that Republic are in both houses in November? I don't know what that question means. Nostradamus, great to see you again. I saw Democrats have been fleeing from the party via registration last 2 months. How do we pivot? I think people like me and you need to do the work, Nostradamus. And we don't know what the current numbers are exactly. It looks like people aren't registering Democrat, but it does not look like, the Republicans are doing all that much better. The Democratic Party is not in a great place. But I also don't necessarily think it's their fault that they're in that bad place. I think that the systems have been, the game has been rigged against them for a really long time. And I think that people like you and me need to do the work of reversing course, Tweedledum, you were the person that asked for my breakdown of why they lost the 2024 election. Did you hear it when I did it? Do you need me to repeat it? Tweedledum says, is Mamdani of concern for Liberal Party? Is he a good candidate? I don't think he's a concern. I think that he is the solution to the Democratic Party. Nathan Nagy says, are you a Democratic voter? Yes, and proudly. Mia's LV Adventure says, are independents the largest voting bloc now? The largest voting bloc, Mia's LV Adventure, is non-voters. It is people, it is people that have just completely opted out of politics entirely. Nathan Nagy says, that explains it. That explains why everything I'm saying is so accurate. Nathan Nagy. Sweet Rob says, could Trump stop mail-in voting? Not through executive order. He could try to do like shady shit to try to stop it. But the executive order will not stand the way that he has written it exactly. Shiny Flaptrap says, I missed it if you saw my discovery in the chat. Oh, I did not see your discovery, Shiny. Sorry about that. I'll look for it, though. Ali Bay says, this presidency has made it so that more people will show up to vote. We should not sit around and hope that happens, Ali Bay. We need to make that happen. We need to make sure that we're talking to people and making sure that they are on board with the goal of unelecting every Republican in 2026 and 2028. Please and thank you says he's getting to the point that he can do anything. So what do you mean he can't stop mail-in voting? I'm just saying that that's not how executive orders work. Now, will the Republican Congress and the extremely corrupt Republican Supreme Court somehow allow Trump's executive order to stand and make mail-in ballots illegal? It's possible, I guess. I don't really see a mechanism of it. But yeah, just the way it stands, it doesn't stand. All right. Dr. Chris MD says, you're too scared to answer my question. I didn't see your question. Rini Rock says, I saw a clip of you with a redhead comedian. Very funny. Thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you, Rini. I appreciate that. Nassan says, do you think the Republicans will retain both houses in this election? I don't know. Nobody knows that. And Hassan, polling says that Democrats are in a good position to take back the House, but not the Senate. But, and Hassan, we can affect that. We can do the work of trying to unelect Republicans, All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Ronnie Schwartz says, as a foreigner, the U.S. seems so close to a civil war. Is that a possibility? I think it's very unlikely that there is a civil war in America. Please and thank you says, have you seen a mechanism for any of this stuff? Oh, yeah, 100%. There's a mechanism for everything that he's doing, whether it is the Supreme Court or Congress or, whatever. He is not just signing executive orders and then they happen. There is pushback happening. Andrew says, do you think gerrymandering is going to go national after Texas and California? So depending on which state you're talking about, there are laws that make it so that they wouldn't be able to redistrict in time for the 2026 election. Now, there is currently a case at the Supreme Court that would make it a lot easier for red states to do gerrymandering before the midterms, but it really comes down to a state-by-state basis. If you're asking whether if every state just fucking went nuts and did all the gerrymandering that they were allowed to do in the time that they have left, Republicans would come out on top. By how many seats, I have no fucking idea. But yeah, there's the reason why Republicans allow partisan gerrymandering is because they know it gives them an unfair advantage. If it was the other way around, then they would not have filibustered Democrats trying to make partisan gerrymandering illegal. All right. Carmine, good to see you too. Shiny Flytrap, Ohio is the only state that was supposed to do it this year. I don't even know why they were supposed to do it since it's not, a decade. Sweet Rob says, I like when you say my name. Good job. Thank you. Let's see here. D.D. Lee says, is Trump a bad president? I think he's one of the worst presidents, you know? Dr. Chris says, you can't because you cannot debate me. I don't believe in debates, but if you ask a question, I'll answer it. Nissan says, what do you think about Donald Trump sending National Guards into the blue states? It is bullshit, authoritarian shit. He's lying about the reason why he's saying it. It is just authoritarian dictator shit. It is not Nazi shit. It is Hitler shit. You know, it's just, yeah, it's complete and utter nonsense. It's a massive waste of resources. It's really scary. It's putting Americans in jeopardy. Good guy says, and Kamala was going to win the presidency according to polling. There is almost no polling that said that. Every poll had it neck and neck. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Arthur Stig Blomqvist says, no crime in D.C. There was crime, but it doesn't make sense that he would send the National Guard to stop crime in D.C. because, number one, there are a lot of other cities that are worse than D.C. crime-wise, in red states, for example. All of the highest crime and highest violent crime cities are in red states, so why not send the National Guard there? Additionally, he's not sending the National Guard to the neighborhoods that are experiencing all the crime. He's sending them to the fucking National Mall and tourist destinations and everything. It is just, you know, proving that he can tell the military what to do. It is a threat to all of his enemies and to anybody that would stand against him or speak against him. Alrighty, Carmine says, did you go over the new executive order? Briefly, Carmine, about setting flags on fire. It's bullshit. It's stupid. It is just Trump doing stupid culture war shit instead of actually bringing down costs or protecting Americans or stopping wars, shit like that. Let's see here. Rini Rock says, do you think the Texas gerrymandering might hurt instead of help? You know, I've heard that theory, Rini, and my philosophy is let's not wait and see. Let's do the work to make that happen. You know, like let's fucking win every seat. Let's do the work to win every seat. Philly says, notice how all of these intellectuals TikTok for a living. Tells you a lot. I do not TikTok for a living. I'm a stand-up comedian. Hella Dopla says, thoughts on Cuba? As a Cuban, I believe the embargo as a scapegoat. I mean, I thought that the move was during the Obama administration when we normalized relations with Cuba. You know, all that our embargo is doing is hurting Cubans. You know, it is not doing anything to affect any kind of positive political change for the Cuban people. Alrighty, Marie says, TN is on list, probably Memphis. Elon got AI there. Tennessee is on the list, probably Memphis. I don't know what you're referring to there. Probably the crime thing is what I'm guessing. Nostradamus says, win every seat. How do we do that when we as a party disagree significantly on issues like Israel? Nostradamus, I think we need to focus on the things that we agree on, you know? For example, you know, whatever side of the Israel issue that you come on, we can agree that Republicans are worse on that issue. Let's fucking solve the problems that we're having in America. Can we agree on how damaging the Republican Party is and how the move is to replace them with Democrats? And if we don't like those Democrats, replace them with better Democrats in the primary. But the Republican Party is never the solution. Their platform is garbage. It is just cutting regulations so that corporations can poison you with the chemical runoff from their factories, and billionaires don't have to pay taxes, so that there's no fucking social services. We can all just fucking go die in the street for all they care. There's no protections for unions or workers or overtime pay or, fucking, yeah. It's just a fucking nightmare, my guy. We just have to do the work. We just have to do the fucking work. We have to do the work of convincing people. Nostradamus says, I disagree that it is a winning argument. We used the Republicans are worse in 2024, and it didn't work. Nostradamus, the idea that the message Republicans are worse is the message of 24, and that was an ineffective message, it's a little myopic, you know? Like, there were a lot of different things going on in 2024 that have exactly zero to do with a messaging strategy that was Republicans are worse, which, by the way, it was not. Kamala Harris's messaging was Donald Trump is a unique threat, and also our platform is going to help you, the American people. And people did not hear that message because billionaires flooded the information spheres with misinformation and propaganda to convince people to either vote for Republicans or not vote at all, and it was extremely effective. Matthew says, Democrats are so full of shit they really have no clue. You know who is not full of shit anymore is your mom, because of where I had sex with her. Scrolling down to the bottom, Phil Lee says billionaires who overwhelmingly donate to Democrats. That is inaccurate, Phil Lee. 75% of all billionaire political donations go to the Republican Party. There are more billionaires in Donald Trump's cabinet than any president in history. Additionally, the platform of the Republican Party is a giveaway to the billionaire class. So it makes perfect sense that they would use their money to try to elect Republicans. Phil Lee, you just said wrong in reaction, but you're wrong, so I don't understand where you're coming from here, where I just gave you like 3 very specific bullet points to prove that I am right about this, and you're just saying wrong. So exactly what do you want to do here, my guy? Do you want to just call each other wrong and call each other names going forward and just be snarky? You have 0 proofs. Okay, congratulations, Phil Lee. You're out of here, my guy. Alrighty, scrolling down to the bottom. SBLR says, what do you think about billionaires? Should we abolish billionaires? Have their money go to social programs? Absolutely. Every billionaire should be demoted to 900 millionaire. We should make it so that you cannot be paid more than 100 times the lowest paid employee at your job. We need to tax the highest income levels at things like 90%, like we did during Eisenhower. Tony says, how much did Kamala spend? Oh, right, 1.2 billionaire donors. Well, Republicans and Donald Trump had more, Tony, a lot more. Would you like me to connect the dots for you, Tony, about why the billionaires donate 75% of all their political donations to Republicans? Shiny Flytrap says, what do I do if I discovered full-on insider trading with my senator? I guess, it's not really illegal, Shiny Flytrap. I guess I would just say call their office and tell them that you don't like that and that you want them to vote for a bill to make insider trading for people that work in the government illegal. Johnny Flytrap. Nostradamus says, do you not think it's myopic to think that R is 1 in 24 because they spread misinformation? I don't think that's the only reason, Nostradamus, but I do think that it is part of the reason. So yeah, I would not say that it is myopic to say that because there are other reasons. It was a wild, political time to be alive, and there was campaign finance violations that were happening. Elon Musk was bribing people $1 million to register as Republicans. He was sending fake flyers that said that they were from the Harris campaign. There was also incumbency bias, where everybody was mad at just whoever was in charge because of the inflation that was going on. There were a myriad of issues, but it is not as simple as saying that the Democrats' message was just Republicans are worse than us. It is not as simple as saying that the Democrats are too far to the left or too far to the right. It was a lot of different things. Alrighty, Shiny Flytrap says, so I did that, but Tillis's office is closed. His lines are open like once a week. So Shiny Flytrap, have you gone to his office? Have you started a political action group and given yourself a name like Americans Against Insider Trading, Americans Against Insider Trading, AIT 8? That's a fun name for a group. Get 3 of your friends to sign up, and then you each call every single day and leave a message and say, I'm calling on behalf of Americans Against Insider Trading, and we do not want you to be doing this. And if you continue to do this, we will use all of our political power to try to replace you in both the primary and in the general. Right, Marie says, do you think vote blue no matter who? Yes, 100%. Nostradamus says, let me phrase better. What could have Dems do better in 24 besides Biden leaving early? It's a really difficult question, Nostradamus, because I think the main sin of 2024 was Biden only leaving Kamala Harris 100 days and making it impossible for there to be a primary that, was not him on the ballot, I think Biden not running, and I think Democrats standing firmer against the Netanyahu government in Israel. I think those are probably the 2 things that I would point to. But as far as like messaging strategy is concerned, with 100 days, I don't see how they could have done any better. Kant says, is Trump turning the Republican Party into a socialist dictatorship? Example, the Intel acquisition. I mean, the Republican Party is only socialist where billionaires and giant corporations are concerned. It's, fucking, it's aristocracy for us, where we're the fucking serfs who have no rights, and it's socialism for them, where if they do stupid shit with their money, then the American taxpayers will bail them out, But yeah, 100% Trump is turning it into a dictatorship. Nostradamus says, I think the other main sin was Dems did not act more aggressive in Israel. Completely agree with you on that, Nostradamus. But again, if Democrats had come down harder on Israel, then they would have been facing even more aggressive politicking by AIPAC, which is an extremely well-funded and powerful organization. So it's possible that that could have been the reason why they lost the election. I don't personally believe that, but I think that it is. I think that we need to have the humility to accept that we don't know what would have happened in X, Y, or Z case. There are the internet and TikTok and the intellectual sphere is littered with people who are saying that if only Democrats had done this one weird trick, then they would have won in 2024. But I think it's much more complicated than that, and I think that nobody knows that for sure. All right, Possum says Trump is not even close to being a dictator. That is inaccurate. Possum, he is extremely close to being a dictator, and that is something that should concern every single person in this country. Kant, AIPAC is dangerous. I agree. SBLR says, do you believe in mass amnesty? I'm not 100% sure what that means. I don't know what that policy means. I don't know if there's specific groups of people that would not be granted that amnesty. So yeah, I don't believe that immigrants are the problem that Republicans say that they are. They are net positive, and I do not believe that what the Republican Party is doing is going to solve whatever immigration issue they seem to be having. Rumpel Stillschlen 09, good to see you. Let's see here. Nostradamus says they may not have won in 24, but I would have been more happy in their moral background. Yeah, completely agree. I would have been. I think they would have been more morally in the right place. Possum says, were you for open borders? No, I was not. Cyrita says, did trickle-down economics help the economy at all? No, it only helped billionaires become more rich and poor people become more poor. It gave us worse income inequality than during the Gilded Age, Cyrita. And that's still what the Republicans are doing. Even though it has been proven to do nothing correct, they're still just doing that. Just reason, one of a billion other reasons why we should all be working to unelect every single fucking Republican. Alrighty, Shay Carell, good to see you again. I think Trump wants to be a dictator, but genuinely doesn't have the intelligence to accomplish it. I don't think that he needs to be all that intelligent to accomplish it, Shay Carell. He has consolidated power. He has installed loyalists at the heads of all the various agencies. So yeah, it is not something that he needs to be smart to do. It just is whether or not good people like you and me do the work to stop him. That's the only thing that's going to stop him. It's not his own idiocy that's going to stop him. SBLR says, I think we should do mass amnesty as it will be easier than mass deportations, as it would be easier. Yeah, it'll definitely be easier and cheaper also. Nostradamus says, I think if Mamdani wins NYC, that may send signals to establishment Ds. We need to pivot on policy. Potentially, but you know what would be even better than that, Nostradamus, is electing more people like Mamdani in the primary. If we replace all the Democrats that are fighting against progressive change agents like Mamdani, then they will really get the message because they will be out of a job. Marie says, do you think the military will stand up to Trump? That is an open question, Marie, and it is terrifying to think about. The Trump administration has been doing a really good job of firing people in the various military agencies and replacing them with loyalists. Everybody in the military is told that they are morally obligated to disobey illegal orders, and that just following orders will not save you if there is any sort of trial at The Hague or some shit for the things that they have done. So yeah, we are just hoping and praying that the various levels of authority within the military hold, the ones that haven't been replaced by MAGA fanatics yet. Fog War Productions says, how do I figure out who I need to vote for to turn Mike Lee's office into a spirit Halloween? I'd say give it a Google. Maybe check out Run for Something. See if anybody's voting in that area. See if anybody's running in that area. Sweet Rob says Trump said he cheated. How could he get away with that? Because everybody that is in a position of power to hold him accountable is on board with his authoritarian agenda. So nobody's going to stop him because nobody wants to stop him. If we gave Democrats more power, then 100% we could. Possum says, I personally love what he is doing. He is doing exactly what he said he would do. Possum, that is not a question. And you don't have a profile picture, so I'm just going to just assume that you are not here in good faith. Alrighty. Excellent questions, everybody. Excellent numbers. Thank you so much for being here. Keep sending in your questions, but I just wanted to say thanks for all the questions and all the support and all the gifts and all the likes and all the shares. And remind everybody that my regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Nostradamus says, do Republicans like Trump more or his policies more? I think they like him more. Like, I think that they forgive his policies because they like him. Alrighty. John Bradley says, what do you think is the next evolution of MAGA if Trump doesn't unconstitutionally run again? So he's going to run again. He's going to do whatever he can to stay in office until he dies, John Bradley. I think the most likely outcome is that one of the Trump kids takes up the mantle. I don't think that there are any people in the MAGA universe who are in a position to inherit the throne the way that they might want to. So yeah, I don't really know what happens after Trump. I just think that we need to facilitate that by unelecting every single Republican and replacing them with Democrats, and then replacing those Democrats with better Democrats if we don't like the work that they do. Alrighty. Leonard Wood says they don't give a shit about his policies. Potentially. Bob Scott says, who said that? Who said what? Let's see here. SBLR says, how do you think this administration is different from the past Republican administrations? It's just, it's just everything shitty thing that Republicans have done in the past, only on steroids. It is more for the rich. It is more against the poor and the working class and marginalized communities. It is more authoritarian. It is more militarized, Triska Fowen says, what are you expecting we will learn on Wednesday from the Rockland County investigation? Ooh, I didn't know that discovery was happening on Wednesday. That's so exciting. I have no idea, Triska, but now that I know that's happening on Wednesday, now I got something to Google. Bobby Scott says, do you think the country is divided on purpose? Yeah, the billionaire class and adversarial nations have filled the information environment with the exact kind of narratives to get us fighting amongst ourselves so that we do not notice that they are robbing us fucking blind and giving us all fucking cancer. Short says, would you want future Democrats to be blue Trumps or more conventional politicians? That's because I'm not 100% sure what you mean by blue Trumps. I don't think that they should be trying to be anything that they're not. I think that politicians do best when they are sincere. I think that we need to do a better job of teaching Democratic politicians how to be sincere and how to not sound like they are robotic. And so, yeah, I don't mind if a politician is going to be more aggressive or going to be more of an institutionalist. I just think that they should be who they are, because I think that authenticity is really important for selling the benefits of, democratic government. All right, SBLR says, do you think we should have free universal health care? 100% SBLR. But something that I would like to make very clear to people is that if everybody in government decided today that we were going to do universal health care, it would still be a very hard thing to do. That is going to take a lot of time and energy. We should 100% do it, without question. But I want people to know that that is very likely going to happen. And the billionaire class is going to try to use how long and difficult and expensive of a road it is to switch over to free universal health care as a way of stopping it from happening. And so long as we are in agreement that it is a hard thing to do, but that we still should do it, then that propaganda will be less effective. Alrighty, everybody. If you would like to help support the channel, with more than just your comments and your likes and your shares and telling all your friends how great my live stream is, you can support financially. You don't have to, but you can. You can join my Patreon. I have 4 patrons. They are dope as hell, and they would love for you to join them. I have a store that you can buy things from. Both of those things you can find on my website, jaredbernstein.com. link in my bio. And yeah, you can send gifts and subscribe on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube. You know, there's all different various ways for you to support. I'm not even familiar with all the different mechanisms by which you can send like gifts and likes and subscriptions and stuff like that. Yeah, let's see here. Mia's LV Adventures says, I want to know when you're coming to Las Vegas. I am not going to be touring again for the rest of the year. And so, yeah, I will let you guys know when I get my schedule for 2026. All right, Average Joe PG, can you pass along this important public service information? Having interned at the district office for a U.S. representative, just calling as an individual doesn't usually make a difference. What makes a difference is the volume of calls surrounding a specific issue. Yeah, but you calling can be one drop in a large volume of calls on a specific issue. Like maybe we do the work of creating a political action group and getting 5 of our friends to form a political action group, and everybody calls every single day to communicate to our elected representatives how important these issues are and how we want them to change what they're doing. Or you just call and tell them how you feel, and maybe millions of other people are also calling and telling how they feel, and maybe millions of people all feel the same way. But I agree with you, Average Joe PG. If you have the time and the inclination and the energy to start a political action group, fucking do it, my guy. Fucking do it. Mello says, thoughts on Newsom leading the Democrats? I don't hate Newsom, and I also don't love Newsom. I think he's fine. I don't care who wins the primary. I'm going to vote for the person that I want to win the primary, but whoever wins the primary deserves all of our support, because we need to replace every Republican with a Democrat, because the Republicans need to suffer electoral consequences for the shit that they are fucking putting us through. I mean, going through the list of things that Trump and the Republican Party have done in the past 7 months, 8 months, that are unconscionable, illegal, barbaric, hurting people, hurting women, hurting marginalized communities, ignoring people's civil rights, corrupt, blatantly corrupt, unprecedentedly corrupt. That could just be the entire fucking hour that I'm doing this live stream, because it is jaw-dropping how all-encompassing the shit, the bullshit that they are doing and are allowing to happen is. And if America does not deliver the Republican Party electoral consequences equal to the evils that they are doing and letting happen, then we're fucked. Then as a country, we are fucked. We are telling Republicans that they can get away with it. That we don't give a shit what they do. That we fucking hold Democrats to this impossibly high standards. But for Republicans, the shit that they do, it can't be bad enough for us to punish them. They're only going to get worse. And this country is only going to get worse unless we teach them through voting them all out of office that we will not put up with this fucking shit. That we do not care for Donald Trump erasing fees that billionaires are required to pay to us because they broke the law. That we will not stand for a president accepting dark money donations in the billions of dollars from unknown entities, foreign and domestic, through a fucking crypto coin. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, that by itself is, I think, enough to justify unelecting every Republican, in addition to cutting taxes for the rich, cutting social services for everybody else, cutting Medicare, cutting Medicaid and Social Security, fucking kneecapping all of these government agencies by firing everybody. The wasted time and energy that they have spent on stupid bullshit culture war, going after Trump's enemies instead of keeping Americans safe. Like, fucking hell, man. It is so fucking massive. It is difficult to wrap your head around. It is difficult to say, to deliver an all-encompassing list, you know? I haven't even fucking mentioned the concentration camps, both here and in nations being led by fucking vicious dictators. That is the only thing that will get us out of this. They need to be taught this lesson by losing their next election. Every single one of them, from fucking president to dog catcher, they need to lose. Alrighty, let's see here. What's the last thing I always tell you guys? Yeah, any questions that you guys come up with that I didn't get a chance to I didn't get a chance to answer on the live stream, you can always email me. My DMs are open. You can check out my Discord. The Discord is an excellent resource for ways to get involved, ways to learn more about this. There's great recommendations for books and podcasts and civic action. And that's another place where you can ask questions if you think of things later. Because I have this goal, I have this crusade to get more people involved, to get more people educated, to pull more people out of misinformation and propaganda rabbit holes, to unelect more Republicans, to elect better Democrats. And I am all in on this crusade, guys. And so my work does not stop when the live stream stops. So anything that I can do to encourage you guys to get more involved, to answer your questions, to help guide you on the path towards doing the work, I want to do that for you. So please use me as a resource, whatever time, day or nights, and however you choose to reach out to me, either via my DMs or my website or my Discord. There was one other important thing. Oh, so I was thinking about a new project, actually, where if you guys out there know people who fall into this category of not necessarily like a MAGA person, like I'm not trying to get into a fight with a MAGA person about what's real and what's not real. I'm talking about, like, I want to find the non-voters. I want to find the 85 million people who don't vote in this country but who can. I want to find the people who are are not MAGA people, but aren't sure why people are upset at Donald Trump and aren't sure what's real. I want to find those people. And so if you know those people and can somehow get them to me so that I can do like a podcast where I talk to them about stuff and do the kind of deep canvassing that they talk about in the book, The Persuaders, like that, I think would be maybe a really good project to do, and maybe we can use this network that we have here of, 100 people on TikTok and, a handful of people on TikTok and Twitch and everything and YouTube to try to actually find the people that we need to reach, because, that's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to reach the persuadables, the non-voters, so that we can get, more participation and, we can start winning these fucking elections, So, yeah, hit me up if you know people like that. Get in touch. That's a project that I would really like to do. Regular Jimmy running for president sounds like liberal lipshits world. What a weird thing to say. All right, everybody, please do the work. Armastat says that the Democratic Party collapses and the GOP gets a supermajority in Congress and have the presidency itself for the next 2 to 3 election cycles. How do you think the Republicans would use this? Armastat, we are seeing what they do with power right now. They are doing Project 2025. It is a slow weakening of the American government, turning it into a dictatorship, removing all accountability. It is turning America into the kind of dictatorship that they have in Russia. That is what will happen. And it is up to people like you and me, Armastat, to stop that from happening by unelecting every Republican, replacing them with Democrats, and then primarying the Democrats that we don't care for, and electing them instead. Pink Squirrel says, if I normally vote Democratic, but I want to primary a Republican, do I just vote as a Republican? It depends on which state you live in, Pink Squirrel. Some states you're allowed to vote in whatever primary that you want. Some states you have to be registered as that party in order to vote in, in order to vote in that, in that primary. Alrighty, Texas. Yes, I do not know, Pink Squirrel. I don't know what the laws are in Texas, but if you send me a DM, then I will happily look that up for you. Marie, yeah, let's talk. Hit me up on the Discord. Maybe we can start coordinating podcast guests for me. Sunshine Wildflower says, how much influence does Stephen Miller have? And how can we nullify him? The way we nullify him is by electing more Democrats. And how much influence does he have? All the evidence that I have seen suggests that he is the shadow president, that he is actually the one pulling the strings. Nostradamus says, what's the Discord? If you go to my bio, if you click on the link in my bio, it will send you to a links page, and the Discord is one of those links. Alrighty, let's see here. Short says, do you think appointing Democratic loyalists is going to be the path forward for Dems? No, but there's a difference between voting, installing career politicians and loyalists. Like, the problem with installing somebody like Pete Hegseth at Department of Defense or Kash Patel at FBI is that they're not doing the job of the FBI or the Department of Defense. They are doing the job of doing what Donald Trump tells them to do. So we don't want somebody in that office who will say the job of the FBI is just to do whatever President AOC tells me to do. We want somebody in that job who says, I'm going to try to run the FBI to try to keep America safe, or the Department of Defense to try to keep America safe and have a strong, fair, equitable military, et cetera, et cetera. Take care of my veterans, shit like that. So yeah, it is not about fighting fire with fire. It is about replacing the people in government that need to be replaced. Alrighty, everybody. Thank you for being here. Please do the work. I will see y'all tomorrow. We are back, baby. We are back to our regular streaming schedule. So get out there and do the work. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channels. Take care, everybody. Have a great week. Goodbye.